Everyone Saranai.
Everyone Saranai.
Okay, let's start our session. First of all, let's pay homage to the Supreme Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. May the Noble Triple Gem bless you all. Today, once again, we are going to start yet another discussion. So today, our topic is the fourth Noble Truth, the last one. So far that we have discussed the first three Noble Truths. So now, in the chapter 4, we are going to start the fourth, the Noble Truth, the way leading to the cessation of suffering. So let's start here our session. The page number is 142. Those who have books, you can turn the pages. So long as craving, dukkha samudaya satya, remains unextinguished, pervading the human mind, as long it craving would make anew the set of five skandhas, with the cessation in death of the previous skandhas in a long succession of repeated rebirths, the generation of suffering, dukkha, is thus maintained. So the five skandhas, the provenance of birth, aging, disease, death, sorrow, and lamentation, etc., are sustained. So that we know already, as long as the root cause, which is craving, prevail, or if not, it is eliminated, which means we are bound to future births, or in other words, having new skandhas or regeneration of skandhas. So as long as we have the craving, which means we are supposed to the recurrent the births and deaths. Just as in the world there are light against darkness, coldness against heat, antidotes against diseases, and righteousness against unrighteousness, there is also something against the recurrent dukkha. That's something we call, as has been already mentioned, nirvana or dukkha nirodhara satya. This elemental nirvana is clouded and pestered by the five gory aggregates, and its nirvana flavor of emancipation remain untappable by the ordinary human. If craving, which assembles and brings forth the suffering mass, is eradicated, the train of suffering, which blooms with it, also ceases. With the cessation of the five skandhas, the nirvana, which had been clouded by the skandhas, emanates and shines in splendor. When nirvana thus shows forth, it is conventionally said that the person has reached or attained to nirvana. So what here explains is that there is something always opposite. So the dukkha, for the dukkha also there is something opposite, which means the nirvana. So ordinary person, the worldly person, cannot object the nirvana, cannot know the nirvana easily because of ignorance. Ignorance covers the truth by not letting to understand the true nature of the skandhas. So the ignorance creates the craving, which means the root cause of suffering. So if someone can eliminate or eradicate the craving, which means that he can experience the nirvana by himself. So that's what it's mentioned here, the conventional meanings, like being or the person or the human reached the nirvana. We already have discussed that in ultimate realities that there is no so-called being, only the elements only that we can find, but because of the ignorance, beings are unable to understand as they are. So they take these aggregates as a being, as a person, or as pleasurable, or as permanent. So in order to cut that ignorance off, someone has to understand these ultimate realities and their true natures that we are going to discuss later. For a person to be able to reach or attain to nirvana, the five aggregates which purblins it should disappear. In order to discard the five aggregates, the craving which produces the five aggregates repeatedly should be destroyed. It is solely and only by destroying craving can the five aggregates be gotten rid of. Therefore, if there is a way of destroying craving, of eradicating it, that is also way to reach the supreme nirvana devoid of all suffering. The method or way to reach attain to nirvana is called dukkha nirodha gamini patipada sattva or marga sattva, the noble eightfold path. So as we discussed, in order to reach the nirvana, someone has to destroy or eliminate the craving or the ignorance as well. So in order to do that, eliminate the craving, there's only one way. That is to practice these eightfold path. Practice means generate in our mental stream, chitta santana, that we have to develop these eight mental factors as we discuss. There are some ultimate realities called cetasika mental factors. There are 8 factors, like the right view, right thoughts, and something like that. There are 8 mental factors which we are supposed to develop in our hearts. So that's the only way to cut off these cravings, ignorance, and all these defilements, kilesas. Now it is pertinent to ask what is capable of deracinating craving. Craving is not something that appears without a cause, not something like nirvana that is without any origin. It too has a cause. As much as dukkha is eliminated by destruction of its cause, so craving can also be eliminated only by getting hold of its cause, and thereof deracinating it, the cause thereof. Therefore, one who is desirous of exterminating craving must find the cause of craving and give it a coup de grace. One should concentrate his activity on destroying the craving's cause. Then let us start our activity by finding the true cause of craving. So we know that the Buddhism teaches us that the causality. So everything has almost everything has a cause. So as the cause ceases or eradicates, then the result is also ceases. So here it mentions as the craving also has a cause, which means the delusion or the ignorance, not understanding the true nature of the things, beings, develop craving because of the ignorance. So the ignorance is the root cause. So when somebody eliminates or eradicates ignorance, which means he eradicates the craving as well, because of the craving, because of the ignorance, beings get to know things in the wrong way. Things impermanent, but because of the ignorance, people or the beings take them as permanent. As even though there is no self, because of ignorance, people take these aggregates as self, something like that. So in order to eliminate the craving, someone has to fully eliminate the cause of the craving, which is ignorance. So then let's see how it should be done. To be plain, the real cause of craving is ignorance, without the prompting of activation by a creator, God, or Brahma, or whosoever, arisen only from certain specific causes, and having arisen contrary to the will of the people, dies with a fraction of time, duration taken to bat an eyelid. Dies like sudden quirk of lightning, devoid of whatsoever personality to the five skandhas, owing to not being discerned as conglomeration of mind and form, due to the inability to separate touch, feeling, etc., the wrong notion of considering name and form as an I, and as gods and humans and animals predominates. This wrong notion due to ignorance is known as Sakkaya Ditthi. So because of the ignorance, beings do not understand things, what they experience as they are. Due to the ignorance, the beings thinks that there is a self, as here mentioned, the God, the Brahma, or whosoever. Among everyone, there is the defilement, the ignorance. Because of ignorance, they develop the craving, and the craving or the ignorance. These are sort of ultimate realities. In the deep teaching that we can discuss them, or we can find them as chetasikas, like delusion, that we know there's something called delusion, moha, one of the mental factors which arise in unwholesome chittas. So because of this delusion or ignorance, beings always get deceived by not understanding the ultimate realities, nama and rupa, the name and form. They don't understand this phenomena, the name and form, or the other ultimate realities, the five aggregates. They take them as a being. And that's what happened when we are deceived by the ignorance. We never know there's these ultimate realities, functions as a being. And that's sort of the characteristics that have in these ultimate realities. They can appear as a self. So we have to discern them as they are, as ultimate realities, not like I, me, or they, or something like that. But because of the ignorance, it happens. This wrong notion is called Sakkaya Ditthi, the self-view, the self-identity. So because of this self-identity, this Sakkaya Ditthi, without or not understanding this phenomena, people or the beings develop the craving, which is a root cause of the suffering. The mind-body aggregates are like a flash of electric current, like a line drawn on water, of the nature of immediate disintegration. By not perceiving this quality of impermanence, the ordinary person considers mind-body aggregates as endurable entities, despite the fact that they are within the bounds of birth, aging, death, etc., making the person aggrieved by their constant disintegration and gushing upon the person various sorrows and griefs that makes the person helpless. By not knowing these inherent dukkha of the mind-body aggregates, the wrong notion that mind-body is pleasurable and begotten of happiness prevails. So these are ultimate realities, the aggregates, or that we can further more divide them as ultimate realities in numbers, like chittas and the mental factors and the rupas. So these ultimate realities do not prevail, do not sustain even very small amount of time. They appear and they disappear. They are called chittakshana, the very, very small amount of time. The mind moments. So all these ultimate realities, they do not prevail long time. As we see, though we see as they are, but they don't prevail like that. They appear and disappear. Even the rupas, the speed, though it has mentioned there are 17 mind moments, the chittakshanas, the longevity, but still they do not prevail long time. So in other books, other texts, it explains like where the ultimate realities arise, they do not move even very small amount, small length. It appears there itself because of speed, because of its very, very high speed that we can't see that. Or the normal beings, worldly beings, deceived because of their ignorance, that we have not, the normal people have not developed the inside knowledge. Since they have not developed the inside knowledge, they can't see these ultimate realities. Even rupa, even form, matter, that we can't see that phenomena. It's always happening in everything. So we have to remember that the ultimate realities are just actions. They're not materials. They're not something like objects. They are actions. But because of the ignorance, because of the delusion, the worldly beings can't understand that. So they get these ultimate realities as a being or Sakkaya Ditthi, as self, then as pleasurable, and as non-self. These three characteristics, the anitya, instead of anitya, impermanence, they take as permanence. Then instead of dukkha, the worldly people take as sukha. Instead of anatta, the beings take these as atta, or the self. Instead of considering mind-body aggregates as a group of elements constantly changing and divested of personality, it is wrongly taken to be I, mine, animal, and people. Moreover, the mind-body, is also wrongly taken to be perdurable, and so also wrongly as a pleasurable, happiness-inducing object. Because of these three greatly mistaken notions, there arises attachment and craving towards this I, or personality. Furthermore, craving also arises towards one's wife, children, relations, and friends, yet also craving arises with respect to one's house, field, grassland, money, and other things that he desires. Thus, craving has its provenance in the aforesaid three wrong notions harbored with respect to the five skandhas, mind-body aggregates. So as I mentioned before, the worldly beings do not understand aggregates as they are. They take these aggregates as self, I, mine, not only internal, even external things, or the ultimate realities. They take them as the people, they, them, and something like that. So that is called the self-identity. Is also wrongly taken as well. So not only that, they take as something like permanent, the notion with the permanent. Then the third one is pleasurable. So they don't see this, don't understand this as suffering. They take this as the pleasurable. So yes, these aggregates have these characteristics. They can appear as pleasurable. So that's why beings are too much attached to these aggregates. There is pleasure, but at the same time there are some consequences, way more consequences than the happiness or pleasure. That's why, because of the pleasurable beings attached to the aggregates, because of the consequences, beings, the wise people, the intelligent people detach from these aggregates. That's why that we can find people like the Buddhas. They truly understand the exact nature of these aggregates. They understand these aggregates as suffering. So if there is 5 aggregates, which means that suffering, Sankittena Panchapadanakkhandha dukkha. So the Buddhas understand these reality, this truth as it is. And the noble Arahantas also understand this. And even before that, those who think deeply, the Atta Chintaka, so they understand, if they reflect wisely about these aggregates, they understand somewhat the consequences of these aggregates, which we have discussed so far, mainly in the first noble truth, the suffering, the noble truth of suffering. That itself shows the true nature of these aggregates, the consequences of these aggregates, which is suffering. As we discuss, it is like a poisoned cake, these aggregates. The poisoned cake, the beings or the ones who are going to consume the cake do not see the poison, the poisonous nature. They only see the beauty and the smell and all these. The five aggregates is also the same. Because of ignorance, the normal people, the worldly people, take this as a very, very pleasurable thing. So that's why beings are so attached. But those who study these noble teachings of the noble people like the Supreme Buddha and Arahantas, they can understand the true natures of these ultimate realities or the aggregates. So long as the aforementioned three wrong views exist, so long in him craving would repeatedly arise. What should be done in order to eradicate craving is to root out the three wrong views. If some person totally has not the feeling of I towards his five aggregates, he does not conceive of the five aggregates any more than he conceives of a mound of soil, heap of dust, or a log of wood. For one who views aggregates not as I or personality, but as a heap of dust, log of wood, and a mound of soil, how can there be any attachment towards the skandhas? For one who disowns mental formations, sanskaras, as not I, mine, since there is no me, can he ever have feelings of the sort, this is mine, this I want, as fact are such, with the cessation of wrong notions regarding mind body aggregates, craving to ceases. So as we discussed, because of not understanding the true nature of the aggregates, the beings take them wrongly, right? They take them wrongly. But those who have penetrated the truth, those who have understood the true natures, the true phenomena of these ultimate realities, they do not take these aggregates as I myself. They do not take them as self or pleasurable or enduring things. They, as mentioned here, they take these aggregates as like a mound of soil, heap of dust, and log of wood. So when we study these teachings, that we can find those examples of those who have penetrated these noble teachings. For example, the Buddha. Buddha is someone who got so many accusations, even was someone tried to kill the Buddha. And some people made some groundless accusations, but he was never upset about them. And there are some occasions that it mentioned that the Buddha had same compassion towards his then own son Rahula, and the Devadatta who tried to kill the Buddha. The Buddha had the same compassion towards the both. So that's what happened when you realize the true natures of the things or the phenomena. And even Arahantas, they also understand things as they are. Though they use the notions or the terminology like I, me, you, they, but still they are not attached with them. They use them for the conventional usage. Otherwise, they can't live in the society, even though they understand these realities. Still, they use these the language to day-to-day practices, but they understand the reality. But those who have not understood these noble truths, they always deceived, and because of the ignorance, they generate some more unwholesome karmas, which creates recurrent deaths and births ad infinitum. So that's why it's important to understand these the phenomena, the true natures of these ultimate realities. When someone understands or understand with the path knowledge, the marga jnanas, only that they can cut off these root causes, the craving and all the defilements. Then only they can cease, they can stop these recurrent births and deaths and all the sufferings. The three wrong notions can be deracinated by begetting the knowledge that sees the composites of the five aggregates, such as mind, mental formations, form, etc. And there are three characteristics, namely impermanence, dukkha, and soullessness. Only by such knowledge can the three wrong notions be eliminated. Nothing else can eliminate them. No other method, other than rooting out the three wrong views, can exterminate craving. Although some think that craving could be alleviated by acts of charity. Yet this way of thinking is owing to not knowing the actual facts. Acts of charity leads to diminution of greed. Albeit greed for the object given away in charity. Though the greed for the object given away in charity gets quenched, the root of craving remains intact, and craving arises thereafter with regard to various other objects. So, in these ultimate realities, or five aggregates, as here mentioned, the mental, the aggregates of the matter, the rupa, then there are four aggregates, the psychological aggregates, the aggregates of the feeling, the aggregates of perception, the aggregates of the sanskara, or the mental formations, and the aggregates of consciousness. So these five aggregates have some characteristics. They have the common characteristics which we mentioned before: the anicca, the impermanence, the dukkha, suffering, and the non-self, anatta. So these are the common characteristics. They are called samanya lakkana. These are the things that we are supposed to penetrate as they are. I mean, their true nature. And if we further divide them into the ultimate realities, they have their own characteristics as well, their intrinsic characteristics. For example, like Patavi, if we take Patavi, it has its own characteristic, hardness, heaviness, roughness, something like that. Then if we take the mind consciousness, the mind has a specific characteristics of knowing the objects, something like that. all these ultimate realities have their own intrinsic characteristics as well. And all the, among all the aggregates or the ultimate realities have above said the three, the main or the common characteristics. They are the impermanence, anicca, dukkha, the suffering, and anatta, the non-self. So as we've discussed before, because of not understanding, because of not realizing the true, the natures or the true characteristic of these, the aggregates or the ultimate realities, the beings generate more the karmas, wholesome karma and unwholesome karma time to time. So they are supposed to get the rebirth, the recurrent suffering again and again in the future. So here it says that the eliminate craving. There is a way the people try to practice charity. Yes, it is highly appreciated virtue in the Buddhist spiritual path. But here it says, yes, it decreases the craving, but it does not cut off or eliminate, totally eliminate the craving. Though it helps to decrease the craving, it does not totally eradicate the craving. Although greed extinguishes temporarily from deeds of liberality, when results of such acts of liberality fructify, just like 7 to 8 branches spring up from cut-off branch of tree, craving springs up like a vast tide due to the objects of such fructifications. In fact, those who perform acts of charity for worldly pleasures have their craving increased thereby. Those who perform acts of charity for the sake of attaining nirvana have their craving decreased thereby. However much one may perform acts of charity, greed is not thereby exterminated, but remains at abeyance. Charity must be indulged in, since a being needs worldly pleasures and to develop wisdom while journeying in samsara. One should not misunderstand liberality to be of a useless activity. But if one wishes to uproot craving and attain nirvana only by charity, that is a mistaken belief. So what he explained is that when someone performs meritorious deeds, charity, liberality, or whatever, when it fructifies, what happens? You get more objects, more things, which are the causes to generate more craving. Just like when you cut off a branch, then the new the springs, new branches springs like that. When you get the wholesome results, you develop more cravings. But if you perform meritorious deeds having the aim to achieve the nirvana, then it says, though you get the wholesome results, you do not attach to them like mentioned above. Just only merely when you perform meritorious deeds, yes, it has the ability to give you the good results. So it has the ability to attach more if you perform them without having the right understanding, as mentioned before. So the main purpose should be attain the nibbana. So only then you can use what you get in fruitfully. Yes, so the performing meritorious deeds with the right understanding, it's very important, because in the samsara, you need merits, you need wholesome energies, as that's why Buddha mentioned in somewhere that the gods, the devas, needs merits, the humans needs merits, and the monks needs merits, something like that, because without having good environment, you can't even think about performing meritorious deeds. So in order to perform meritorious deeds, practice spirituality, you need to have the resources. So it is important to perform meritorious deeds having the right understanding. And what you have to understand correctly is that only performing meritorious deeds is not the way to cut off the craving. The Venerable Bhante explained that's a mistaken idea. So the knowledge is twofold, namely inferential knowledge and empirical knowledge. By seeing a shake on the water and knowing there is a fish is inferential knowledge. By taking the fish out of the water and seeing it, leaving no doubt in the mind, is empirical knowledge. Out of the two types of knowledge, the inferential knowledge is weaker. Empirical knowledge is more powerful. It is also known as knowledge by direct perception, pativeda jnana. By knowing mind matter components of aggregates and the three characteristics with which they are associated, it is said that the craving would cease. But by merely knowing them inferentially would not make the craving cease. Craving will cease only when, as empirical knowledge is gained regarding mind matter components and the three characteristics. So, in order to gain the knowledge, the direct knowledge, the marga jnana, the before someone has to have this jnana, which is called anumana jnana, inferential knowledge. So the knowledge is twofold, inferential knowledge and the direct knowledge. The inferential knowledge is that you can guess when you see, when you study the certain characteristic, that you can guess, sort of, you can have some understanding without experiencing directly. That's what you call inferential knowledge, anumana jnana. But when you experience something by your own the direct knowledge, that is called the pativeda jnana. So until you gain the pativeda jnana, it is important to have the anumana jnana. That's why that we learn these teachings. So only you can gain the direct knowledge by gaining the path knowledges in your hearts, in your chitta santana, in your mind stream. The path means that we are supposed to discuss later the eightfold path, the path factors, that we have to generate them in our hearts, all the eight, with the path consciousnesses. Only in the path consciousness and the path factors have the ability to experience these noble truths by the direct knowledge. At the same time, when you realize them as they are, you cut off the craving in the path chittas, with the path knowledge. So that's the only way to cut off the craving, or the understand the supreme bliss, the Nibbana. And not only that, that you having that the deep understanding, the deep knowledge, you realized the true natures of the ultimate realities as well. The true natures are the impermanence, then the suffering, and the non-self. Only then you understand these the realities. Before that, you have to have this inferential knowledge, which we are gaining right now. It's very important. Without this inferential knowledge, we can't go forward in the Buddhist spiritual path. Only if you know these things, then you can direct yourself to gain this, the Pativeda Jnana, by gaining the path consciousness in your mind stream. About mind matter components and the associated three characteristics we can know by listening to discourses, reading Dhamma books, and consulting reverend teachers. All these is inferential knowledge. Inferential knowledge is capable, if at all, at thinning out our three wrong notions with regard to mind-body aggregates, not at eradicating them. As I mentioned before, this knowledge is very important to gain the direct knowledge, the direct experience. Having known by any of the aforesaid ways the three wrong notions and their implications, one must endeavor to proceed to a quiet place and ponder consciously the three characteristics and associated facts. A process known as vipassana meditation. In order to know the vipassana meditation exactly, one must refer the second book in the series, Sambuddha Jayanti Dharma Pustaka. When this vipassana meditation is done, his knowledge of the aforesaid aspects of the Dhamma increase from day to day, month to month, year to year, and from life to life. As knowledge develops, characteristics such as impermanence begins to be seen character and clearer. With the progress of time, the five aggregates and their three characteristics begin to be very lucid and very clear, that they are seen as if though to the naked eye. The perspicuous or the lucid, the clear perception is known as empirical knowledge. This empirical knowledge is capable of smashing the three wrong notions with respect to the five aggregates. So, in order to experience, in order to gain the direct knowledge, someone has to practice meditation, the insight meditation, which is called Vidarshana Bhavana. In order to practice the Vidarshana Bhavana, someone has to have the ground. Someone has to make the ground first, which means to understand the ultimate realities, what the five aggregates is. Then what are the 12 sense bases, the los ayatana, and what are the 18 elements. And so having understood these, the ultimate realities is very, very important to practice the insight meditation. Without having understanding these, the ultimate realities, the Paramartha Dhammas, it's quite difficult to practice Vidarshana meditation, the insight meditation. So only if you study these ultimate realities, then you can practice easily this Vidarshana Bhavana, this insight meditation, and see the characteristic of these ultimate realities, which the characteristics which I mentioned before, the anicca, dukkha, anatta, the impermanent, suffering, and non-self. These ultimate reality, the characteristics that you can understand, you can experience by practicing only the vidarshana bhavana, the insight meditation. Then at some point, as it mentioned here, this empirical knowledge is capable of smashing the three wrong notions with respect to the five aggregates. The wrong notions are the opposite of the main characteristics. Instead of anicca, the beings, the worldly beings, those who do not have understanding about the true natures of five aggregates, they get the five aggregates as the permanent thing, then as pleasurable and as self. So in order to understand the true nature, the true characteristic, or the smash the craving, someone has to practice this meditation method called Vidarshana Bhavana. And there's a book called Vidarshana Bhavana. The same author, the Venerable Ullinduwawe Thero, he has written the book called Vidarshana Bhavana. Then you can study and practice by yourself. For the yogi who dwells continuing Vidarshana meditation, if at some point of time dawns the knowledge that subsidies the three wrong notions and sees the three characteristics of the five aggregates, at that point of time, the yogi sees the supreme beatitude of blessedness of nirvana face to face, and the yogi begets supramundane knowledge that cuts off the most potent part of craving. When this happens, it is said that the person has attained the sotapatti. In English, that the person has gained stream entry. This supramundane wisdom knowledge is called sotapatti marginam. So as I mentioned before, when someone practices this insight meditation, at some point, he understands the true nature of these five aggregates. And the first time when he understands this, the true nature, at the same time he experiences the supreme bliss of nirvana as well. At that point, it is called the noble stage, which is called Sotapatti Marga. The Sotapatti, which means a stream entry. Sota means the stream. Stream means the eightfold path, which is led to the supreme bliss of nirvana. So that's the first time that he generates the eightfold path in his the mind, and at the same time he cut off the craving and the ignorance for somewhat, and at the same time he experienced the nirvana by his own knowledge, by his direct knowledge. I think we've discussed before what happens when you gain the first the spiritual the development, the spiritual stage called Sotapannas, or the Sotapatti, or the stream entry. He cuts off the cravings. The only remain is maximum that can create or generate 7 rebirths. Yes. Despite the attainment of stream entry, still subtle forms of craving linger. In order to eradicate these subtle forms of craving, one must further endeavor in Vidarshana meditation. When the attempt is thus carried forward, one sees the characteristics, namely impermanence, suffering, etc., very much more enhanced and clear cut than earlier. Knowledge becomes sharper. Blessedness of nirvana is seen face to face once again, and supramundane knowledge appears that roots out other more potent parts of craving. The supra-mundane knowledge is known as Sakadagami Marga Jnana. In English phraseology, becoming a once or once returner. Nor is Sakadagamihood the total eradication of craving. Therefore, one who has become a once returner should further strive on the path of Vidarshana, pondering another pondering on the three characteristics. While thus advancing on the path of Vidarshana, the three characteristics become even sharper, unfolding still more bit of knowledge, through which nirvana is once again experienced with simultaneously onset of supra-mundane knowledge that delivers the coup de grace, the final blow to sensual craving. The supra-mundane knowledge is called anagami marga jnana, or in English, a never returner. So this explains when someone gets these the noble, the path knowledges, and how they cut off the craving, and how they experience the nirvana by their direct knowledge. I think that we have discussed several times these before as well. So one who get the first the knowledge, or the first stage of the spiritual path, or the spiritual development, which was called the Sotapatti, then still he has to practice, he has to strive on the Vidarshana Bhavana, the insight meditation, and then he, at one point, he understands the more about the five aggregates, that there is another path knowledge called Sakadagami, the Sakadagami path consciousness. And then he cuts off more cravings. The earlier there remains only maximum for 7 rebirths. When someone gains a Sakadagamihood, he cuts off more cravings, remain only to gain 1 rebirth in the sensual realm. That's why it is called Sakadagami. He only remain the craving for only 1 rebirth in the sensual realm. That's why it is called Sakadagami, once returner. Then again he practices the Vidarshana Bhavana, the insight meditation, seeing the true natures, the true characteristics of the ultimate, the realities of the 5 aggregates. Then at some point he gains the third, the supramundane knowledge, which is called anagami, never returner or non-returner, which means that he cuts off all the sensual desires. So he never comes back to the karma or the sensual realm. Then only remain very, very subtle craving, which is about the ruparaga and aruparaga, which means a craving to be born in the fine material realm and non-material realm. So when the person gets the fourth, the supramundane state, which is called arahanthood. So the arahant path consciousness, when he gains arahant path consciousness with the factors, with the path factors, with the marganga, that he cuts off the remaining, the way subtle, the more subtle, the defilements. They are called upper bonds, like ruparaga, ruparaga, the craving for fine material realms, the craving for non-material realm, then the mana, uddacha, avijja, the conceit, the restlessness, and the ignorance. So he cuts off all these, the defilements, when he gains the final the Arahant path knowledge, with the Arahant path factors. So he experienced fully the nirvana at that point, the supreme bliss of nirvana, by cutting off all the remaining craving and all the defilements. Even after having become an anagamin, craving for form and formless realms persists. To alleviate these two types of craving, one has to throw himself to the utter depths of vidarshana. When thus persevered or strived, the knowledge reaches its most advanced form, deracinating, eradicating the aforesaid craving in a way never to arise again, and plunging oneself in the nectar of nirvana in its highest supramundane form. So that's what I explained before. When he gets the Arahant Jnana, the Arahant path consciousness and Arahant path factors, he cuts off all the remaining defilements, and he experienced the full, the taste of the supreme bliss, the Nibbana. The highest form of knowledge, the wisdom is titled Arahat Marga Jnana, or Arhatship. One who has attained to such a high of spiritual wisdom is called an Arahant. If there is a supramundane wisdom that culminates in experientially knowing the three characteristics, and liberation from craving, followed by 4 times of empirically kenning nirvana. So that is also the overthrower of craving, as the oasis of nirvana can be reached only by severing the craving, severing the craving, which generates suffering. This supramundane knowledge is also the thing that delivers the one unto nirvana, the samam bonam, the supreme state of Buddhism. Thus, the way to the cessation of suffering, Marga Satya, the Noble Eightfold Path. So, the Noble Eightfold Path is the strategy. Actually, the path means a strategy to cut off the craving and all the defilements, which are the root causes of re-becoming and all the suffering. So this is the path or the strategy to cut off the root cause, the craving and all the other defilements. So that's what that we discussed or explained so far, the importance of the Eightfold Path. So now we can discuss some of the factors that we've discussed so far. Any clarifications or any ideas about what we've discussed so far?
Avasarai Bante.
Yes.
So, can you say that empirical knowledge is the realization?
Yes, that's a direct knowledge.
Yeah, empirical knowledge is realization.
Yes.
But empirical knowledge is not the supramundane knowledge.
Yes, the word empirical means like it means here. I don't know whether that word suits here.
Yes.
But as here it mentions, the empirical knowledge is the direct knowledge.
Direct knowledge.
Yeah, the Pativeda Jnana that you gain with the path consciousness.
Yeah. Pativeda Jnana is supramundane knowledge is the Lokottara Jnana. Is that right?
Yes, yes, of course, yes.
Yeah. So Lokottara Jnana and Pativeda Jnana are the same.
Same, yes. Pativeda means you understand.
You're right.
Yeah, Pativeda simply means understand. Understand, not just the merely understand, but perfectly understand.
The realization.
Realization, yes.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yes.
And I found it
Try to ask something.
interesting how one has to indulge in charity with a great deal of wisdom. Otherwise, one could be perpetuating craving.
Yes, I did mention here that it needs to have the proper understanding when you perform meritorious deeds.
And in reflecting or trying to understand it better, it is the importance of not connecting it to a benefit to what we consider ourselves, isn't it, Bhante?
Yes, the priority should be the attaining nirvana. Yes, the worldly objectives shouldn't be the main purpose.
So, Bhante, if that is the focus, or we aim for that to be the focus when one is engaging in some form of meritorious activity or dana activity, how should one's mind be positioned towards achieving what?
Yes, I mean, the people perform meritorious deeds for so many reasons, right? For birthdays, for get blessings and transfer merits. It's perfectly okay. But at the end of the meritorious deed that you perform, that you can lead your mindset into the achieving the nirvana, that you can do it when you perform the meritorious deeds for whatever the reason that you start it, but you can have a wish at the end of the meritorious deed. So if you look at the Arahantas, their previous lives, you know, so in the previous Buddha sasanas, they performed so many meritorious deeds. And at the end of the meritorious deed, they keep a wish to attain such and such, positions and gain the arahanthood. So it's very important to have that wish. That is called vivattagamini kusala. Vivattagamini means that the merits or the meritorious deeds helpful to cut off the sansaric journey.
So like sort of the wish being that the sansaric journey is shortened by these acts. Yeah.
Yes.
To
And the
degree.
other type of meritorious deeds are called vattagamini. Vattagamini means that the samsaric journey is not going to stop, and it increases or something like that.
Something like Vadi and Labeva or something is
yes.
It's the opposite of that.
Yes, that's what happened when you don't have, I mean, not you, I mean, those people don't understand the Dhamma, those who have not come to the spiritual practices correctly, having right understanding. That's normal.
So, Bhante, it requires a great deal of mindfulness and thought at the time you embark on this, right from the very beginning.
Of course, that's one of the most important virtues in the Buddhist spiritual path, because if you do not have the sati, the mindfulness, whatever the moment, doesn't matter whether you perform meritorious deeds or some other time, it means you are in sort of unwholesome, generating unwholesome chittas. Only when you generate sati, that's you have the ability to the correct you will lead you to into the wholesome path, or the generate wholesome the consciousnesses. That's what the sati or the mindfulness do. If there is no sati, which means you you generate unwholesome. That's the normal tendency in the worldly mindset. You know, always to lean into the unwholesome things. You know, that's the nature of the mind. Maybe towards the desire or the cravings or the anger. These are the thoughts that we having most of the time if you don't have the sati. So what sati does is it mentions or it leads us to the wholesome path.
Bhante, we discussed this briefly, I think, at the Abhidhamma class also. I personally have observed that being mindful kind of adds a sense of burden, because one becomes far more aware of all the unwholesome activity in your mind. So you get this feeling that you're less of a good person simply by being mindful. Would you comment on that, Bhante?
The thing is that just being mindful is not quite enough, because you have to have sort of understanding before, about the Dhamma, you know, the benefits of the wholesome or benefits of the proper mindfulness and consequences of the unwholesome, and all about all these things you have to have proper understanding. Because for an example, if you see sometimes animals, you know, they in order to kill some other animals, they have to focus attention, you know, a great deal of attention that they have to put, right? And if we say some people plan, you know, robberies and killings, you know, they plan them and they have to perform with, you know, some sharp thinking sometimes, right? So, but in wholesome way that you have to, actually those are not called sati, right? They are not sati, there's no sati. But the delusion and all these defilements appear like the wholesome at those times. But when you can perfectly practice sati only when you have quite a good knowledge about the teachings or the, as we discussed, the ultimate realities, all these things. Otherwise, it's quite difficult.
Yes, Bhante. At the start, it requires a great deal of
Yes, the main thing is that the attitudes that towards the Dhamma that we have to gain, attitudes then which leads us to have the right understanding. When you only learn the teachings, you strengthen your right understanding. Only then that you can go forward in the Buddhist spiritual path. Whatever you practice wholesome deeds, you can perform them pretty well. Meditation or some other virtues.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yes. I think these factors that we've discussed several times, that what happens when you cut off the craving, on what happened when you gain these the direct knowledges, which means the path consciousnesses, how they cut off the craving and all these, right?
Yes, the awareness, because it's more enhanced, the degree of attachment or greed gets moderated.
Yes.
To some extent, I think.
Yes. And there is a saying called sati pana sabbatta balavati hoti. The mindfulness is very important in all the spiritual practices.
The ability to bring the Dhamma to bear in everyday activity is a very difficult thing, Bhante. When you are just in your lay life going about things.
Yeah. Yes, it depends. Yes. Yeah, that's the most important thing. Just before that, I mean, we have to be happy what we are capable of, right? And how it progress. That we should not be unhappy that, oh, I can't do this or something like that. Because that you try your best. I mean, everyone. You learn the teachings, you spend the time to grasp these teachings, and that's really important. And you see the gradual process.
The expectations of the teachings are so high that when you look at yourself and compare against the teachings, you end up in such a low position.
No, I don't agree, because you know what the Buddha said about that? That's when you know where you are, who you are, that's what you call you're quite a wise person. You know, because you know who you are. If you don't know your position, where you are, there's a problem.
So even recognizing your own defilements is itself
Absolutely.
achievement.
Absolutely. Yes. There's a stanza in Dhammapada, I can't exactly remember, that says the exact meaning that if you know you are like Bala, or right, the exact word is Bala. So then you're a wise person, because you know where you are, your position.
Right.
Only then you can go forward in the spiritual path.
That's very helpful, Bhante. Yeah.
Yes. There's something called know-it-all. You know, they can't go forward in the spiritual path. Yes. So it's very important to understand where we are, our position and our capabilities and our weaknesses. It's very important to have that understanding to go forward in the spiritual path. So do not let yourself down.
Thank you, Bhante. It's very helpful.
Yes. So then if you don't have more questions, then we can wind up here. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we are going to wind up here our Dhamma discussion today. So I appreciate your joining here and the enthusiasm to learn these noble teachings. And I also try my best to teach you these noble teachings according to my understanding. We generated so many enormous amounts of wholesome thoughts in our hearts. So let's transfer these merits to departed ones. Idammi ñāti nang hotu sukhita hontu ñātayo. Idammi ñāti nang hotu sukhita hontu ñātayo. Idammi ñāti nang hotu sukhita hontu ñātayo. Let's transfer merits to the devas as well. Ittavata cha amhehi sambhatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ittavata cha amhehi sambhatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ittavata cha amhehi Sambhatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhi. By the power of all these meritorious energies that we have generated right now, may lead us to supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu. You have lots of merits, Bhantes.
Yes.
Thirteenth.
Thirteenth.